So good morning. So happy to be here. This is interesting. So quickly, my background is 17 years in public education in Alaska, mostly in Alaska, although I grew up in Massachusetts, went to college in Massachusetts. And then I went to Apple. So I worked at Apple for 12 years after that, and in California. And then about 18 months ago, started this new gig in Washington, D.C., inside the Beltway. They're like, say something from inside the Beltway. I'm like, I have no idea what even that means, and I've been there for 18 months. So anyway, lots going on in Washington, so I can chat a little bit about that. But really, you know, what I wanted to really talk about is actually kind of what you set up, right? How are we thinking about technology in the context of a U.S. education system? So some of you got the blue book in your bag. How many got the blue book in your bag? Some of you did. I guess they sent one box, so everybody didn't get one. So if you didn't get one, it's also online, the digital version, at ed.gov/technology, along with a bunch of other kind of stuff that we do and publish and talk about. So it's funny. So as I was thinking about this today, I'm thinking, you know, I should like create my entire presentation like it in Jeopardy board or something, which would have been much more fun for you all, but I didn't. So that's just a time thing. But I'm glad that people at MIT have time to muck about and put cruisers on top of buildings and whatever else. That was great. Those were great slides. So the technology plan that we actually published in November is called Learning. Really, it's all about learning. It's about transforming the American education system by powering up our systems with technology, leveraging the best things we possibly can. So let me take that apart a little bit, and hopefully it will absolutely not sound like strapping something on and like plugging kids in and, you know, just let them use technology and they'll be smarter, because it's absolutely not about that. What I am really thinking about a lot is how do we create education systems so that we regain a whole bunch of time for playing and mucking about and using games and using innovative projects and challenges and really getting kids in a much more interesting contextualized environment inside of school. And that's incredibly important for equity purposes. A lot of kids have amazing opportunities outside of school. We want to make sure that we can figure out how, even in the inside of school hours, and for those kids who don't necessarily have summer camps and FIRST robotics and, you know, all sorts of other interesting things, how we really can create way more compelling environments in our schools. So first of all, you know, whenever I travel, I am representing Secretary Duncan and the administration, and Secretary Duncan really does thank you, and he tells us, when you go out, thank people for their work. Thank people for what they're doing every single day in trying to figure out how to go from here to here in our system, how to really ramp things up. We want to hear about barriers. We want to hear about the best ideas. We want to be able to shine a spotlight on what's happening everywhere. So thank you for your work. So President Obama in the State of the Union, I don't know if you heard the State of the Union message in January, but it was interesting, right? We were like, cool, right? Talking about innovation, talking about education, and talking about infrastructure. These kinds of things that we really do think will power up the nation. So education being really kind of one of three core principles for powering up our economic system, for improving our kind of system of social justice, for improving national security, for really improving the lot of every single American. We really believe that education is unbelievably critical, and that hasn't changed. But now we have this situation in the United States that we have an incredible amount of inequity, as you said. So yes, we have some kids that are just amazing and unbelievably creative and innovative and thinking every day and have every possible opportunity to explore and do lots of things, take lots of AP courses if that's what they need, IB programs. But what we have is probably schools missing about 50% of our kids or more. So we have, you know, quarter to a third of our kids dropping out of high school, not even graduating from high school. So that's game over already, right? They don't go on to college or whatever. We have probably 30 to 40% of the students who actually do go on to some kind of post-secondary that need remedial help, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry in this country called remediation. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we are not sending away too many of our kids. So, not to be a downer first thing in the morning, but there you go. So we have our work cut out for you, but I will tell you we're so excited about the opportunities and what we really can do to power up the education system with innovation, like really getting these people who are incredibly innovative, and all of you that I know are incredibly innovative, to really kind of put your best thinking and your best efforts to work at creating a way better education opportunity for every single person. So there you go. That's that. So just kind of taking it to a whole different level, when we think about some of the opportunities, digital media has completely transformed our world. So who can tell everybody about this picture? February 17th.
10-year square.
Okay?
Egypt.
In Egypt, digital media, Facebook in particular, but Twitter, Flickr, all of these digital media tools really powered up the opportunity for people to coordinate their efforts. It provided the opportunity to tell stories that we otherwise would not have heard, right? So there was all of that, and we were glued to that. How about this story? What's this picture?
Tsunami?
The tsunami, yep. Post-tsunami. So there was all the tragedy, all the terror, because of media and because it was Japan, and everybody flipped out their cameras and their phones and took pictures. We could see on the ground what it felt like, or we could imagine what it was like because we had these visual images people were publishing all over the place immediately, right? Really, in the Thailand tsunami, it was much more. We saw the same footage kind of over and over again. With Japan, we just kept seeing more and more and more stories and footage. And this actually also offered us the opportunity to see some of the hope, some of the delightful things that happened in the midst of all of this when they found this baby alive, multiple days after the tragic earthquake and tsunami. So again, media stories, they bring us into the lives of people around the world. Okay, on a lighter level, what's this?
A dog.
The dog doing what? Running after the...
Train?
No? Come on, somebody.
Pack money.
Super Bowl. Doritos, there you go. It's the Doritos dog, right? So for this year again, Doritos, yeah, running after the what? The Doritos folks did the same thing, right? So the person who made this award-winning commercial, spent about $500 on it, and he's actually a part-time web designer for kids. So he's like, sure, I can make a Doritos commercial. Did this great commercial. And why I bring this up, and two other examples. The Super Bowl this year was kind of touted as a transition between old and new media. Because everybody who bought their, $3 million for a 30-second spot or something like that, everyone who bought one of those, they all had to figure out how to stretch it. Okay, do you have 30 seconds of someone's attention, or can you figure out how to stretch this, right? So things like this definitely stretched it. Anybody know what this Super Bowl commercial was about and how they stretched the time? Okay, I'll tell you. We don't have much time. We only have 3 minutes. So actually you can't see in this, but right above his head are the two little Angry Birds characters. So what you needed to do was freeze frame this commercial until second 26, and at the 26th second, up popped these little Angry Bird characters, and embedded was a secret code. So you could go online, and then you could put in your secret code. And by the way, this commercial was for the movie Rio, right? And so when you entered your code, you unlocked a special level of Angry Birds. So one of the eggs looked like a football. One of the magic eggs looked like a football. Enter your code, and then you would be entered into a drawing to go to the premiere in Rio de Janeiro, right? So not only did they stretch their 30 seconds, because people like every frame for 30 seconds or whatever. Okay, one more. Okay, everybody loved the little guy doing the Darth Vader, the horse, and he starts the car and he all startles, right? This was great. So what they did is they played this commercial online on YouTube for like multiple days before. They had 13 million views before the Super Bowl even happened. So you know during the Super Bowl, this commercial will come on, they go, wait, don't leave, you know, sit down, you gotta see this commercial, right? So people in their living rooms were, instead of going and getting their snacks, they were gonna stay and watch the commercial. But also the online version was 60 seconds. It just had more examples of him trying things around the house. So the 60-second version, when they had their 30-second version, it launched people, but when they went online to look at it, it was 60 seconds. Again, really interesting. So the old to new media, the ways that people are really thinking about the strategies of before, during, and after, it's kind of the creative ideas. And when we think about school, when we think about shows on TV, think about transmedia, think about all of the opportunities to work with students in the moment and then to build the experience kind of before, during, after, how do you continue wrapping them in and bringing them back, again, to kind of the central themes. So there you go. Who knows what that is? That's an eagle. Anybody watching the Decorah Eagles? There are some people watching the Decorah Eagles. So Decorah, Iowa. This is a camera up in a tree, 80 feet off the ground or something like that. It's just way up in the tree. In fact, but it's a live webcam. So I came upon this, and I went to it, and here's this little baby eagle that had just hatched, and there's 2 other eggs. Well, this thing is on 24/7, so I sort of got addicted to it and put it down in the corner of my screen all the time. I was always watching these eagles, right? So there you go. You can't really see this very well now. There's 2 little baby eagles. Then there's 3 little baby eagles, and the one has its wings around the other 2. It's just, they're totally adorable and unbelievably addicting to watch. But look how they've grown. Now they're these big bundles of eagle, and the adult is no longer trying to sit on top of them, which they did for a long time after they were born even. But again, so this opportunity to bring this kind of experience into classrooms and allow children, I mean, I've looked up all sorts of things on YouTube about eagles and researched and learned more about eagles than I ever knew, because I have the opportunity to watch them up close and personal all the time. And even at night as an infrared camera. So these kinds of opportunities really do change the way we can think about powerful learning. So there's a video that was done by the Twin Cities Public Media. I'm not going to play a piece of it, but I'm just going to tell you that this is a great video. It's called Digital Media, New Learners of the 21st Century. There are 5 stories that really kind of take you inside learning environments with kids, with teachers, with assignments, with projects. And when you watch these stories, that's the kind of thing you can look at. You can see, what are the students doing? How are they interacting with each other, with their assignments, with the technology? How is the technology helping them do what they're doing? How are they interacting with teachers? How are teachers interacting with other adults? And then what is the nature of the kind of work that everybody's doing? Really helpful for us all to look at and for us to sit down with peers and other people when we're really trying to figure out how to power up our learning environments. Really helpful kind of case studies. This is just the description of one of those. So Quest to Learn is the game-based school in New York City that you might know about. I won't read this, but basically it's a design with a kind of a gaming pedagogy, and students are really involved in complex environments that sometimes they help design, and sometimes they are they're involved in using the designs. There are game designers embedded in the school, which is totally cool, right? So anyway, that's cool. So we're talking about games today. You should definitely check this out. So let me just go a little bit further about why now is really the time. So first of all, mobility. How many people have a full internet in their pocket with them?
1.
Somebody has lots of internets. Multiple internets in your pocket. There you go. And actually, when you think about the mobility, the devices, the iPad and the tablet devices, 1 year. We've only had those out for 1 year. So when you think about the changes in what people are carrying around with them, the efforts at mobility, 1 year. So we're only a year into this world. What's your favorite place that you go online to learn with other people? Twitter?
Instructables.
Where?
Instructables.
Instructables, Ning, Wikipedia, Epicurious, Ravelry. Anywhere else? Other places you go? Photography? I mean, there are places all over the place. Whatever your hobby is, whatever you're interested in, you can find other people online who are actually very interested in that too, and you can learn together. There's a single guy that does the website called the Strobist, which is about photography and lighting. Millions of visitors, lots of people involved in this, and that's his thing, and people can go there and learn together. So social interactions for learning. So as we're thinking about why now is the time, mobility, social interactions for learning, the proliferation of really powerful, very good digital content. You know, we have kind of the cat playing YouTube, or cat playing piano on YouTube kind of stuff. So I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the really highly produced. But actually it's interesting. So USC is doing USC. They're doing a project this summer. They found like 15 of the prolific producers on YouTube that are not professionals, right? So people who create stories, do things on YouTube, a lot of following. And they're bringing them to USC, and they're going to teach them the mechanics and some of the more professional techniques for videography and for producing media. And as it was explained to me, they're like, we're not sure if we're going to wreck them or help them. It actually is an experiment, and they're kind of upfront about that. Because they're trying to really figure out what is amateur and what is authentic and what is professional, and kind of where do those things interplay. So definitely interesting to think about, and as we work with students as well, keeping that authentic voice. Like, how do you build authentic voice as we help people become more and more proficient? And then finally, big data. And I'll change this slide, because we think about big data, but we also think big data connected with innovation and with really good questions. The big data we think about today and we hear in the news is, all of our location data actually being stored somewhere, which is just a crazy thing to think about just from a space standpoint. I don't know, it's just something about that, right? Where does all this data go, and where, how is it mined? In education, we have not begun to touch the opportunities for thinking about the use of data and the use of information to help students learn better, and to help us evolve products to a much better level. So when we think about that, we really are at this inflection point. We're at this transition between a predominantly print-based classroom and a digital learning environment. And this is incredibly important, right? And it's kind of like the transition between pre-printing press to printing press. Pre-printing press, we learn from other people, right? Printing press happens, we still learn from other people, but we also learn from books. And schools have been really good at teaching people how to learn from books. Now we're at this digital inflection point, and now we can learn from digital environments, the kinds of things that are much more, that can be much more interactive. They can guide the reader. So if you have a book that then can read to you, it can define its words, it can take you deeper, ask you questions. Alan Kay talks about this as the guiding interface. He's like, it's beyond interactive, it's guiding. It scaffolds the reader, right? So if we think about this transition from print to digital, and all of the affordances that can give us, it doesn't mean that we ditch learning from people, ditch learning from books, right? It means that we have an entirely new opportunity to design and develop really powerful learning environments that can, again, take us further. And the locus of control can really be moved from the teacher, again, to the student. So the National Ed Tech Plan, if you have your blue books, right? There's the learning chapter, there's a teaching chapter, there's an assessment chapter, and those three together kind of frame out the vision for learning. Then there's a chapter on infrastructure. What does this need to look like? There's a chapter on productivity, which I'll give you a quick snapshot of. And then there's this bonus section. What needs to be invented? What are the grand challenges? How can we think about the kinds of innovations and inventions in order to really power up the learning opportunity for every single American? And we know, by the way, when I say every single American, there are 93 million Americans that are adults that are undereducated. In the state of Michigan, the data shows that and I got this data from PBS, they sent me the report because I did not believe this, that 44% of adults in the state of Michigan read at a 4th grade level or less. What did somebody just say? I have to know that.
The S word, somebody said that.
I don't even know it. You're right. Why did I ask? I just thought it was going to be a joke I could put in my next presentation.
And Karen, can we assume that that state is actually better educated than other states?
I don't think so. Better educated or worse?
Can we assume that there are other states where the overall population is not as well educated as the state of Michigan?
I have no idea. I mean, that's a good question. I think partly in Michigan, you know, we had the auto industry, and there was a very viable economic track and job track for people that didn't necessarily need a great education. And they were sort of incented to get out of school as soon as possible to get into the auto industry to get their pensions rolling, right, to get going on their career or job. However you think about it. So I'm not an expert in this, I shouldn't even sort of pontificate about how this happens, but the fact remains that 93 million Americans are quote unquote undereducated and could benefit from more. Okay, so the learning chapter of the national plan talks about 21st century expertise. So the fact that we have to think about not just what do kids know? Like, do they know these facts, and do they know the history of the country and those kinds of things? But they have to know how to think and communicate and collaborate and all those kinds of things. Now, the whole debate about, well, do kids need content or skills is totally unconscionable because nobody is saying they need skills and they need to communicate and collaborate about nothing, right? These things need to be totally integrated, absolutely, but I'm not sure that we need every student to know exactly the same content. But we need students to know enough content so they can communicate, collaborate, think critically, etc. So that's important. The plan, we really focused in on how people learn, and I'm not going to go deeper on that. There's some great books out on the table out there that can get you into that if you're interested, or the plan actually goes deeper on kind of some of the things about how people learn. Specifically about the importance of affect, the importance of prior experience, languages kids speak, the stories they bring to school. How can we totally personalize the learning environment and the opportunities we have now? Part of this comes from the fact that with the internet and with technology, we can bring in that long tail of interest. The schools that I've worked with that have done really complex project-based learning, they outgrow their school library, in very short order. Right? They need to be able to get online because there are so many more things, and you don't know what those things are. You can't plan ahead for them. You don't know what questions are going to come up in the context of a project. So you need to be able to be doing fluid research and analysis as you go. You might need a data set that you can only get online somewhere. Universal design for learning, this is the opportunity that we now have to create environments that are good for way more people, right? So as David Rose at CAST likes to say, a book is inherently disabled. It can't turn its own pages. It can't read to you. It can't, if you can't see the print, it can't help you out, right? So when we create digital environments, we can create these that can scaffold learners that have all sorts of disabilities as well. That whole notion of universal design for learning kind of has a few different parts. One is access to content and being able to see things in a variety of ways. The second is being able to produce and demonstrate understanding in a variety of ways. Really important. So if we can get in the assessment world from everybody needs to answer this question, because it's valid and reliable, everybody needs to just answer this question in this particular way, and it has to be presented exactly the same to every kid, right? To getting to a much more fluid opportunity for people to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding in a variety of ways. Games absolutely have a fantastic place in this kind of powered up world order. And then the last thing is really the learning environment that incorporates informal learning and formal learning. The opportunity to bring these things together, to build, to be able to leverage what happens outside of school, give it credence, and maybe even credit, right? The no-brainer is things like kids that play different sports and they work out and do their sports for multiple hours and then they need to take physical education to get their PE credit, right? So things like that, or music and some of the things students do outside of school. Science camps, science challenges, all those kinds of things. How do we give those things credence inside of school? Okay, so the assessment, and I'm just going to go quickly through the rest of this because we got started just a wee bit late. But assessment is about measuring what matters, the full range of standards, not just the ones that are measurable in a little bubble test. Assessments that are embedded into the opportunities that students are having to learn. Again, thinking about games, and the games really are kind of one giant assessment engine, right? You're constantly trying and figuring things out and learning from the data on the screen, and you gathering badges and gathering more assists as you play the game. Offering real-time feedback. Again, the opportunity when we move to technology, students don't have to wait for an adult to correct a paper. They can be able to be getting information on how they're doing as they go. The opportunity to create persistent learning records that students own, right? So this isn't thinking about a big, huge data system with everybody's records in it. It's thinking about me as a 6th grader and my parents having the rights to an electee of my persistent learning record. Even in our current iteration, we have standardized tests that come back. The teachers get a piece of paper, the parents get a piece of paper that has just some information on it and maybe a little breakdown. If we turned all of that electronic, the parents got an electronic copy of that, then they can begin to see how they could begin to identify the places where students are strong and weak and link off to other things that might help their students do better. So you just start building on this. So we keep thinking about what are the couple things we could do. If we could say every parent has the rights to an electronic copy of their child's persistent learning record, that would be sort of game-changing. Okay, the teaching environment. This was really interesting. We wanted to make sure nobody got to the end of the technology plan and said, oh, I get it. Technology will replace teachers. Like, totally on the contrary. What technology will do is augment human performance, just as it does in multiple other industries, right? It helps people crunch data, it helps people do better, it connects them to what they need when they need it, and by the way, it scaffolds up their students. So we do want teachers to be highly effective, and by being highly effective, we think being connected to the data, information, tools, content, resources, to the experts that can help them, connected to each other. Those are the kinds of things that will help teachers be more and more effective. Right now in schools, we really ask teachers to do their work kind of with 2 hands tied behind their back. They're not powered up with the best technologies. And even taking this to kind of more of an instrumentation level, thinking about the airline pilots, right? We want them. Technology has not replaced airline pilots. However, they have multiple opportunities to understand what's going on around them. They can connect to the planes next to them, to the control tower. Not a perfect analogy, but interesting to think about. We want technology to power up the role of teachers. Okay, so all of that really kind of sets the high bar, and then the infrastructure, basically 24/7, community-wide, broadband. President Obama said in the next 5 years, we'll build out broadband to 98% of the country. Access points, I always tell people, don't get attached to devices because they come and go. That's not the point. Access is the point, right? So where today can all of our students get access to the tools and resources and courses that they need to have the opportunity that they need to be successful? And equity actually was on that slide. So the last section, productivity. Again, moving from print to digital should offer us lots of opportunities to create a much more productive environment. And by productive, I mean if we're all in 4th grade and we all need to, today is October 10th, and so we're all doing, 2-digit multiplication because that's where we are in our book and our pacing guide and all those kinds of things. That's not productive for multiple students in the classroom. So how do we ensure that we're doing things that are actually helpful for students where they are, what they need to do? This is not to say that it's individualized, meaning everybody plugs in and does things at their own pace. It's to say it's incredibly participatory, but again, technology platforms can help us make sure that we're doing things that are as productive as possible for students every single day. One of the things that is killing us, frankly, is the seat time requirements. Whether it be for professional development or for student credit, whatever it is, everything is measured in the time you spend. And that is so counter to productivity. If we can build competency-based learning, we could get to that point where that $2 billion remediation industry may not be necessary because we helped people continue until they understood all the way through. And yes, we need looping, we need to come back to it months later. Lots of those things need to be in play, right? But how do we build that kind of environment? We can extend the school day, that helps us with productivity, moving to online and blended approaches. And finally, learning can turn into being lifelong. Connecting formal, informal, in school, out of school, multiple pathways, multiple learning progressions, multiple opportunities, multiple instructors, multiple access points, different environments that spring up that help people learn, multiple sources of content. We were talking a little bit at breakfast about the state adoption, right? That just needs to go away so that we can begin a whole new way of thinking about the appropriate and useful and best materials for students to use in their learning. And it's not going to be bound by the heft and page numbers, the amount of pages you can put in a print-based form, right? It's going to be much more expansive. We still need ways of understanding what's the most helpful, but again, some of the big data systems can help us to get there. And really learner-centered. Okay. Last thing I'll leave you with is the notion of a learning positioning system. We know what GPSs are, right? And could we create something that instead of a map having the rivers and streams and cities and towns, take all those things off and you have the learning progressions from numeration to calculus and whatever else at MIT is beyond that, I don't know. What's another? There's a bunch of other stuff up there, right? But this map that maps out all of mathematics for you.